Welcome to episode 26 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on January 30th, 2020. Today I'd like to talk to you about Vogue Knitting Live now that it's over and done with for real, review some yarn, wrap up the Maakin for the MRI knit along, and share an ongoing effort to promote the use of rare breed wool. That, some bits and pieces, a few songs, and we'll have ourselves a show. Let's get started. First, I'd like to thank Jules, Lara B, and Charlotte for leaving kind comments as they reviewed the podcast in iTunes. Leaving a starred review and a comment as you do it is a great way to help people find the show, and I know that it does take up some time in your day, so I'm always grateful to see those reviews appear. Another way to help support the show is to make a monthly contribution through Patreon at www.patreon.com/IThoughtIKnewHow. There are levels starting at $1 a month with all sorts of benefits available to patrons who support the show, so please hop over there and see if any of those appeal to you. 2 nights before I recorded this was our monthly online knit night for patrons at the $5 and up level, and we had a really great time chatting and sharing our knitting. And of course, just spreading the word to your yarn-loving friends is a great way to show your support as well. Thank you, thank you. I'd like to start by giving you a frank and honest review of Vogue Knitting Live. In a nutshell, I would say that I'm glad it exists. I can understand why people enjoy it, and it was not my favorite yarn or knitting festival experience of the last year. If I were to rank the festivals I've been to in the last year, I don't know that Vogue Knitting Live would land in the top half even. It would be somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure if it would be upper middle or lower middle though. That said, I am being honest when I say that I'm glad it exists and I can understand why people enjoy it. So let's focus first on the things that I liked, because I do feel a little guilty for not being able to express full love for the experience, and I want to front load the review with all the good things. Okay, so first, because of what it is a huge draw for vendors, and I saw some very interesting things while I was there that I had not seen elsewhere in the course of the year. 3 Green Sisters may have been my favorite find. They are the ones who made my new favorite knitting bag that is massive and has 11 pockets. And if you'd like to hear an interview with one of the owners, you can go back to episode 25 to get that. But Anna Hrachovic was also there. She is the designer behind Mochimochi Land. Many of you would recognize her little project. She is the person who designed the little gnome in the GIF of the gnome that knits the heart and floats up and away. She had a display that covered several tables of her mochi creations in a completely knitted landscape. London Kaye was also there with a new bit of crocheted street art in honor of the wildlife affected by the fires in Australia. The best-known yarn shops in the city had very popular booths. There were major and minor yarn companies. Only a few farm wools were represented, though, and there were many, many indie dyers. The fashion shows were full of the daring as well as the lovely. There was just a lot to see because it was Vogue and it was New York. I really enjoyed my class on steeking with Julia Farwell-Clay. It was presented logically and her information was thorough, and she very graciously pointed us to other teachers and designers as she taught, both as the sources of how she learned a certain technique and to encourage us to seek them out. Julia used to be a college professor, and I think that the flow and quality of her information was a reflection of that experience. Because Vogue Knitting Live is such a draw for people, I was able to meet so many of you there. Quite a few of you were able to come by the Morehouse Farm booth and say hello, and it was great to get to put names with faces. And because it's such a draw for people, there were so many of the big names in the industry there to see. I'm not even going to start naming names because it would take ages, but between the people who were there as teachers and those who were there to promote projects and those who were part of the program and those who were there to cover the event, yeah, it was very much a who's who of the fibercraft community. So, positives. Good shopping, good teaching, good opportunities to see people. If you are somehow involved with the fiber community as a business, it's probably the best event to go to for networking. So there's lots of positives for the show. But for me, there were also enough negatives to drop it down the list of my favorite fiber events. One major issue I had, I think, is that because it is so big, the marketplace was split over 2 floors. So if you left the top floor to go to the lower floor, you'd miss out on what was happening on the main stage. But the event is so large that I cannot even begin to think where they would be able to host it all in one large room. So I think that that's just the nature of the beast. And while everyone was very friendly, it lacked the warmth of a lot of the other shows I've been to. At Shetland Wool Week, for instance, you constantly have the sense that you are being welcomed and hosted. And that feeling was present at Loch Ness Knit Fest as well. Maybe less so at a show like the Massachusetts Sheep and Woolcraft Festival, but there you had the chance to meet and speak with the actual farmers and growers and makers, and there was less of a crush, so you could have a nice long chat with someone you ran into if you'd like. It was a better opportunity to get educated by the people who made the wool. There was very little at the marketplace at Vogue Knitting Live that I could not have found and bought online. It was helpful to be able to see and touch, but now, having seen and touched, I don't feel the need to go back for several years. Because, and this is probably the biggest issue I had, going and being there for the event was so expensive. Being in the city overnight for several nights, the classes started at $120, the travel, the food, and I'm someone who travels quite a bit and travels quite a bit for yarn-related experiences, but I just did not think that the expenses around Vogue Knitting Live were worth the experience I had while I was there. I don't like giving a negative review, and I don't even classify this as a negative review per se. Circling back to the start, I am glad Vogue Knitting Live exists, and I can understand why people enjoy it. It just did not leave me with a pressing desire to return next year and every year for the rest of my life. And I did have that feeling coming out of some of the other yarn festivals in the last 12 months. I think if you live close enough to make a day trip of it, that would be the perfect amount of time to spend there. Take a class, do the marketplace, catch a few of the main stage events, and then head back home. If you're going there to network, it would be worth doing an overnight stay to be there for 2 days. So you could try to get some of the people you hope to talk to and bend their ear for a bit. And of course, if you're going as a vendor, it's a great opportunity not just to sell, but to give people a chance to see and touch so that when you're home 2 months later, posting your heart out on social media and sending out newsletters, that many more people will have experienced your product and be more likely to order. So there you have it. My impressions of Vogue Knitting Live. Do with them what you will. Quickly, I'd like to tell you about the Sandnes Garn yarn that I got to see at their event at the Norwegian consulate. I loved it. Okay, moving on. Okay, maybe a bit more. I got to the event and they had several racks of sweaters knit up in their yarns. They have yarns in wool, alpaca, cotton, and linen. Almost all of them were all natural, but some had a bit of nylon in them for stability or strength. Not many, though. There was a table with baby clothes. Their superwash still managed to be very soft. The patterns they had available ranged from the traditional to the contemporary. Honestly, they had some things knit up that looked like you could pick them up at a Gap or a fast fashion retailer, and things that would have looked at home on a Norwegian ski slope. Because they are already established in Europe, they have lots of patterns for you to pick from already, and there will be more as the patterns are translated into English. Sandnes Garn used to be available in the US, but it's been about 30 years now. There was a local yarn store owner at the event who had worn a sweater she'd knit from Sandnes Garn when she carried it in her shop all that time ago, and it was still in great shape. The prices are highly competitive. I would suggest that you keep your eye out for it at your local yarn shop. Give it a feel, see what you think. If you are a designer, they are looking for people to partner with. The contact email for that is post@sandnesgarn.no. That's post, P-O-S-T, at SANDNESGARN.no. And I will have that in the show notes for you as well. Let's take a moment for a song. I found this song earlier today. I am not in love with the lyrics, but I am in love with the sound of it. It's produced to sound like it's from a record you found in an attic one day, but the way she's singing makes me fairly sure that it's a modern recording. It's interesting. I tried to find some more information about it, but when I searched, the listing on the music licensing site was the only hit that came back. I don't think I have ever had a Google search come back with only one result. Anyway, I liked it. I can't tell you very much about it, but I'm going to share it. This is What Love Means to You by Tom Goldstein.
I never know what I want. You always say that I'm always wrong. Hey, rise and shine, 'cause all the time you want what's mine. We never kissed goodbye, 'cause I know you'll come back soon. The sparkles in your eyes can be seen from the moon, and I know there is no truth in what love means to you. It's not the right time to talk about love, 'cause you always see yourself above me. We never kissed goodbye, 'cause I know you'll come back soon. The sparkles in your eyes can be seen from the moon, and I know there is no truth in what love means to you.
I would like to tell you about an ongoing project of the Livestock Conservancy that's been going on for a year now. Shave 'em to Save 'em is a program designed to help save certain breeds of sheep that are on the endangered list by getting their wool back into the hands of fiber artists so we can appreciate their unique qualities. I believe I've talked before in earlier episodes of the podcast about how not all wool is the same. A lot of knitters get stuck using the workhorse wools or generic wools that you find at big box stores or local yarn shops. Those yarns are fine. They serve a purpose, but it would be a shame to see some of these breeds disappear for reasons that boil down to poor marketing or the lack of a supply chain that gets them into your hands. Participation in Shave 'em to Save 'em is limited to those in the United States, but I think the intent is important and should be something all fiber artists should keep in mind as you choose yarns for projects. Not just in the name of biodiversity, but in the hopes of creating better finished objects as we choose fibers that best match the purpose for what we are making. There are 21 breeds on the conservation priority list. Some of them I've already had the pleasure to work with as monobreed yarns over the last year, and the qualities really are quite different. Caracal, for instance, is what we used in the Oxford Punch Needle class at the New England Fiber Festival. It's very coarse, but it's extremely hard wearing, so it's perfect for carpets. Shetland is also on there. Their fleece ranges from very soft and fine to sturdy and sleek to carpet quality, all in the same fleece. That's partly their downfall because as we have gotten more industrialized, fewer people want to take the time to divide up a fleece. They want the fleece to be uniform so it can be trimmed off and sent to be processed without the extra work. Shave 'em to Save 'em will continue until the end of December 2021, so we have a little less than 2 years to participate in the project. To join up, you go to livestockconservancy.org, scroll down to the News and Events section, and click on Shave 'em to Save 'em initiative. On the next page, you can sign up to receive your passport for a $15 fee. There's also a link on that page to the online breeders and products directory. To get a stamp for your passport, you must purchase from one of the producers who is registered with the program. You need to order at least 4 ounces of a single breed yarn from one of the producers and use at least 4 ounces in the finished item you make. Be careful as you're shopping because some of the participating farms also sell blends, but you only get stamps for single breed yarns. One of the goals of the program is to get you to learn about the qualities of these specific breeds, so you can't do that with a yarn that's a blend. Order at least 4 ounces and be sure to ask for your stamp. When you get the yarn, work with it. Post a photo of your finished item and your stamp on social media. When you've hit 5, 10, and 15 breeds that you've used, you can choose a prize. At the 5 projects level, you get a 10% discount to Solitude Wool, Marushka Farms, or A Sheep Like Faith, as well as your choice of Unicorn Power Scour Fiber Wash, a tote bag, discounts to Ply Magazine, some fleece, patterns, and more. At the 10 projects level, your discount at those shops jumps to 15%, and you have a choice of more of the Unicorn Power Scour Fiber Wash, a copy of The Field Guide to Fleece, a free issue of Ply, or a $10 gift card to Living Felt felting supplies. At the 15 projects level, your discount jumps to 20% at the online stores, and you can get either a full-size fiber wash or a digital copy of 51 yarns from Ply Magazine. So which breeds are we talking about here? There are 4 listed as critically endangered, meaning they believe that there are fewer than 1,000 of the animals left worldwide. These include the Florida Cracker, Hog Island, Gulf Coast or Gulf Coast Native, and Santa Cruz Island sheep. I had not heard of any of those breeds before I heard about this project. Threatened breeds are believed to number fewer than 5,000 worldwide. They include Black Welsh Mountain, Jacob, American, Navajo Churro, Clun Forest, Caracal, also American, Rommeldale, CVM, Cotswold, Leicester Longwool, Dorset Horn, and Lincoln. Some of those I have heard of. I mentioned I've worked with Caracal in the last year, but I'm surprised to hear that Cotswold and Leicester Longwool are on that list because I feel like I've heard of those in knitting circles as well. The breeds on the watch list are thought to have a global population of fewer than 10,000. These include the Barbados Blackbelly, Tunis, Oxford, Wiltshire Horn, and Shropshire St. Croix. I did work with some bulky hand-spun Tunis this last year that I think I found at Connecticut Sheep and Wool. It was lofty and I could wear it against my skin, so I think I'm going to seek out some more of that at a finer gauge to play with in a project because working with it as a super bulky hand-spun I think probably affected my view on what the yarn is generally like. Moving on, the last 2 are on the recovering list, which means they used to be on the watch list, but they've moved off because they have been seeing a resurgence, but they still need some help to continue their journey into the Knitter's Toolkit, and those are the Shetland and Southdown. I would not be surprised if the publicity around Shetland Wool Week over the last 10 years has played a major role in Shetlands coming off the endangered list, which shows you how quickly some of these breeds can be brought back into steady use. But to do that, we need to get educated as knitters about what these different yarns can do for us and shop accordingly. I am going to do what I can. I have been drawn to farm yarns over the last year, and I've been thinking a lot about breed-specific yarns, so this effort is really calling to me right now. I sent away for my passport earlier today, and I made my first orders. I started with the critically endangered breeds, and I couldn't find any growers who still had yarn in stock, which didn't surprise me, because I'm coming into it at the start of the second year, and they are very rare breeds. Maybe I'll be able to get some in the late spring when the first shearings have been processed. Anyway, I moved on to the threatened breeds, and those were much easier to find, though it was still a bit of a dig to find farmers who were selling them and also had the computer skills necessary to have a website that was convenient to use. Honestly, I think half of the battle of keeping these breeds alive will be in training farmers on how to connect with online buyers. I recently was paid for some editing work, so I went ahead and picked my first 5 breeds, which were the first 5 on the list at the site that had yarn in stock in a store I could easily use. And this ended up being the Black Welsh, Clun Forest, Cotswold, Dorset Horn, and Gulf Coast. And I'll link to the online stores where I found them to save you some of the digging if you'd like to play along. Visit the show notes for this episode at ithoughtIknewhow.familypodcast.com to find those links, as well as the links to the project itself. There is also a hashtag to use on social media as you post your projects. It's hashtag SE2SE. So shave 'em to save 'em. If you'd like to see what people have been doing, you can search for that before you start. So far, most of the posts I've been seeing have been from spinners, so I'd really like to see some projects by knitters start cropping up more often. Let's talk some more about yarn. That's what you come here for, right? Ashcraft Makers has come on as an official sponsor of the show, and I just got a message from Fiona yesterday about some of the plans to add to her yarn line in the near future. And I am just realizing right now as I'm saying this that I don't know if she told me about the updates in confidence or not. So to be safe, I am not going to tell you what she told me, and I apologize for that. But I will say that when I read one thing, I made happy, quiet squee noises, and when I read the other thing, I did happy, clappy hands. So suffice it to say, there are some really interesting things in store in the coming months at Ashcraft Makers. Hop over to their shop using the link in the show notes, and a percentage of your sale will help with the costs of running the show at no additional cost to you. In fact, patrons also have access to a 10% discount at Ashcraft Makers by using the code on the Patreon feed. So be sure to go over and grab that code before making your order. The code and the contribution to the show applies to anything you buy there, including her lovely project bags and finished knitted items. You can find the link in the show notes at ithoughtIknewhow.familypodcast.com. Second, a big thank you to everyone who has been using the affiliate link found in the show notes to try Drops detergent. There are quite a few of you out there who have made the switch. Currently, if you use my link, you will receive $20 off your first subscription order, which is amazing when you consider that the price per load is already half the price of some major brands. The detergent is delivered to your door, it gets your clothes clean, and it saves you money. There's no plastic involved, and their customer service is excellent. Give them a try at tinyurl.com/drops. That's tinyurl.com/DROPPS. This month, January 2020, has been the month of the Maakin for the MRI Knit Along. Jana Knits of the Purl Together YouTube channel and I have been hosting it in the Purl Together Ravelry group. And as I record, there's still 1 day left, but by the time this episode is released, it will be all over. It has been a real joy. The participation levels were much higher than I expected. The shop we partnered with to put together kits, Needlepoint Joint in Ogden, Utah, sold over 200 kits. And that's not counting quite a few people who said they ordered elsewhere or knit from their stash. The encouragement on the group has been great. We had Fair Isle pros and complete newbies working their way through the patterns from the MRI Mackers. And if you think of just those 200 kits sold and figure one pattern was bought from the MRI Macker site for every kit, that translates to at least $1,000 raised by people taking part in the knit along. Well done, everyone, and thank you again for being a part of it. The knit along was a bit of a learning experience for me too. I needed to put together some video tutorials, which is something I had planned to start doing in the future, like maybe 6 months from now. But that timeline was thrown forward because of the knit along. So yeah. I got some of the rudiments of video production down, thanks in large part to Jana, but I also have a lot to learn. Still, this was some good first steps into video work, and it wasn't perfect, but it was progress. When we first pick up our needles, we shouldn't expect immediate perfection, and I keep telling myself that my first tutorials are just the equivalent of my first wonky garter stitch. In time, I'll likely go back and redo some of them, but for now, they are on my YouTube channel, and I've been assured that they are good enough to be helpful, even though they are clearly the work of a novice. We all start somewhere. Anyway, the MRI Mackers have raised well over 80,000 pounds at this point, which puts them comfortably over $100,000, all in 9 months. through the efforts of the knitting community and others who heard about their work and were impressed enough to shine their spotlight on the cause. I've said it before and I will say it again, knitters are a wonderful group of people. Finally, I will add, if you have been waiting for the pattern to appear in either Japanese or German, hold tight. Those translations are on their way. If you have friends who are knitters and native Japanese or German speakers, please be on the lookout for those patterns to release and share the social media posts when they are made. Billy Middleton, the son of Harriet, who handles all their social media, does not speak German or Japanese, so he's going to need help getting the word to the right people. You can follow at MRI Mackers, that's with 2 A's, on Instagram, at MMackers on Twitter, or MRI Mackers on Facebook to keep your eyes peeled for that information when it comes out. We do have another knit along coming up. I do not have all the details lined up yet, but I know that it is going to be very low key. It will be suitable for all levels of knitters, and I believe just about everyone listening will be able to take part in it. I will say that it's going to take place in April, and I'll fill you in on the details in March. I'm going with another interesting sounding song for this second music break. As it started playing, I nearly skipped it because the opening is pretty common and I thought I knew where it was going. And then the singer started and her voice was not what I expected, so I kept listening. And then I liked the message. So I'm sharing. This is May Klingler singing Ghost.
Our bones have been cracking under the weight of the chances lost and tattooed in black ink. Across all our faces, the loves we've lost. Oh, oh, oh. You dance for the ghost. Don't let the doubt lead, don't let the doubt lead you. Nobody knows, and I can't forget the things I hear when my eyes are
A few more things before I go. I've been invited down to New Haven, Connecticut to speak to the knitting group that meets at Knit New Haven about the MRI Mackers. We have that scheduled for 6 p.m. on February 11th. That's a Tuesday evening. If there's inclement weather, we'll bump it to the 18th. So if you're in the area, I'd love to meet you. Please grab your knitting and come along. Also, a reminder that I will be running 3 rounds of trivia at Stitches United on March 28th. Those will be at the Morehouse Farm booth at 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 3 p.m. It will be a $5 donation to the MRI Mackers to receive an entry card. We will grade the entries after, and the winner will be notified by email. The prize is a gift card for morehousefarm.com. Each round will have different questions, so come by all 3 times if you like. The first 50 people to enter in each round will receive a stitch marker as well. Speaking of Stitches United, I have expanded my schedule a bit. I'll be taking Patty Lyon's Bag of Tricks on Thursday afternoon as I originally planned, but I've added surprisingly special techniques with Anna Zilborg on Friday morning. Because while I was in my steeking class with Julia Farwell-Clay at Vogue Knitting, she encouraged us all to seek out Anna Zilborg to learn her perfect buttonhole. And that is one of the things that is going to be covered in that class. So I made sure to get myself signed up. I have that machine knit sweater body from Shetland that I need to finish the yoke and do the button bands. And I'm going to wait now until I've had that class to tackle that project. So yeah, my 2 days at Stitches United have expanded to 3, but it's an easy drive for me, so no problem. If you'll be there, please pop by the Morehouse Farm booth on Saturday and say hi, even if you don't plan to stay for the trivia. I would love to meet you. Thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you'd like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/I-thought-I-knew-how to make a monthly pledge, or consider making a purchase from one of our sponsors on the website I-thought-I-knew-how.familypodcasts.com, where you can also find the show notes for each episode. Or you can help by leaving a 5-star review and kind comments wherever you listen to this podcast. And tell your friends. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on Twitter where it's just Thought I Knew How. The groups on Ravelry and Facebook are both called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.